Hi Year 11, okay, you're here for the last of the English exams this morning, and I'm just going to give you a talk through of the paper, a couple of tips as we go along, and hopefully that will put your mind at rest and give you some confidence about what's to come. So this is language paper 2, it's non-fiction, and in front of me we've got the 2022 paper. All right, as you can see, the time allowed here is 1 hour and 45 minutes, like paper 1. And it's separated into 2 sections, like paper 1, reading 4 questions, and then writing 1 longer task. Okay, you'll also be given an insert, which looks like this. All right, and in paper 2, you have 2 sources. Please be aware of that. Source A is going to be the more modern one. It will be from the 21st or 20th century, and then source B will be the 19th century source. All right, but they will be linked by content and the topic. All right, it's often worth, as you begin, just highlighting or underlining the year things are written, the author's name, and where it comes from. So a newspaper article here, for example, because that will be giving you a little bit of guidance on the form. All right, so you have 15 minutes built into this exam to read. How you choose to do that is up to you. My advice is, before you read, is to look at the questions, because the questions will guide your reading so it can be more purposeful. So let's have a look at the paper, as we've done before. I started filling this one in because I've just recorded a video and then I couldn't save it. There we go. So the first question is true or false. All right, and your true or false question simply requires you to look at one of the paragraphs from one of the sources, normally source A, but don't assume. Lines 1 to 6, and we're looking for 4 true statements, and what you want to do there is simply highlight, you need to shade in the little circles next to the true statements, as I've done there. All right, don't do more than 4. You want to spend 4 marks, roughly 4 minutes on that question, and no longer. All right, if you can cut the time slightly, great. Then you move on to question 2. And this is the question where you need to look at both source A and source B, and you need to think about how they are similar or different on a specific focus. So in this particular paper, the focus was the ways in which people got to sleep but failed, and the task was to write a summary where you look at the different ways, but look at this word understand. All right, so that means that for your ideas and your quotations, you need to show inference. All right, you're not required to analyze methods or talk about similes and metaphors, but you are required to explain what they suggest or what the ideas suggest in the text. This is 8 marks, and only 8 to 10 minutes should be spent on it. For question 3, this is a question that's very familiar to you because you've done something very similar for paper 1, question 2. The only difference here is that you have a 12-mark tariff. Right, so you want to spend a bit longer, and you perhaps want to write 1 more quotation than you might do for the 8-mark question. And it will tell you, but won't print it out for you separately, where to take from. So source B here, lines 23 to 30, and it will give you a focus, mosquitoes and their impact. Normally, you will find metaphor, simile, or personification. So those are things that are always useful to analyze. And repetition works quite a lot of the time, as do things like oxymorons, perhaps. It depends on the extract. Okay, so you identify best quotes, and you need to say 3 things about each quote. Okay, so this metaphor, for example, suggests that the mosquito is an enemy through the use of war imagery, something like that, and that the writer is desperately scared of the mosquito. Okay, so you're analysing in as much detail as you can. I'm suggesting that you use 4 quotations here if you can, You can combine quotes into one paragraph, or you can divide them up. For question 4, you need to again refer to A and B together. And here you're always going to be asked to write about the feelings, perspectives, sometimes they use other words, viewpoints, attitudes has come up before, but effectively it's the same thing, how they feel about a specific topic. So here it's sleep and sleeplessness. So all you're doing is you're looking for the main difference or similarity between the writer's feelings about sleep and sleeplessness. So in this particular example, I might start with a quote, with an introduction that says something like this: the main difference between A and B is that in source A, the writer feels that sleep and sleeplessness is curable, and she feels relief having been cured, whereas in source B, the writer feels there is no cure and she remains in a state of hysteria. All right, and then that's great because you get a mark or 2 for just writing that, but then you need to use the same format as you would for question 3 really, which is quotation suggests methods, 3 different things you can say about each quote, and I would compare directly to get the best mark. So I'd write about A and B together up to 3 times. 16 marks, you want to be spending in the region of 15 to 20 minutes on this question, or 16 marks, 16 minutes works as well. All right, and finally, if you're doing the paper in order, you could do section B first if you wanted, but section B is writing, and you're going to be asked to write, always will be asked to write either an article, a letter, a speech, or the text for a leaflet has not come up before, and you will need to respond to the statement in quotation marks here. Scientists say that teenagers are not like adults. Okay, they learn and socialize differently and need sleep at different times. Learning and socializing is different. And then the second part is education needs to change. So you've got 2 different elements. In most statements, they will have 2 or 3 different elements that you can divide into paragraphs, or you can play around with together, or you can choose half. You don't need to write about the whole statement. All right, so there's a point of view, but don't start with something like, I read this statement and I agree with it. All right, we want you to have a little bit more flair than that. Begin with an anecdote or rhetorical question and build your answer. It's 40 marks, so we need to be spending somewhere in the region of 40 to 45 minutes on this question. Please make sure you allow enough time, but you don't need to write loads. 2 sides is enough. 2.5 sides is probably my recommendation, and it needs to be good quality, so a little plan before you answer is useful. You would get marks for a plan for one of the assessment criteria if you don't write the answer. Obviously we want you to write the answer, but it just goes to show that a plan is not a waste of time. All right, I wish you all the best. And I'll be around, and your other English teachers will be around at the end just to see how things went. Good luck.